Hi, I'm Barbara. I want to tell you a story about my mother, or rather about how she escaped from a mental hospital. You'll think it's wild, but I was actually a little scared too. My mother's name is Tracy. We lived in the suburbs of Nevada. My mother used to work at a casino in Las Vegas, and that's where she met my father. My mother was standing at the poker table the night they met, and my father came in not quite sober, not in the mood, and completely ignorant of the tricks of the game. My mother's eyes were trained on the pros, and those in the casino for the first time. She immediately set her eyes on my father, and he looked at Mother's hands. According to Mother, he kept praying that Mother's manicure would bring him good luck. At first, he won, and then asked my mother for a phone number. She refused, of course, because flirting with clients was forbidden. Then, during her break, she and my father argued that if he won again, she would give him her phone number. If not, then it's not fate. That night, he lost everything he could, even his watch and his iPhone. He even tried to sell his car, but he came to his senses in time. My father took a deep breath and left the casino and went to his car. On the windshield, he found a phone number written in lipstick. My mother was impressed by his persistence for the sake of her number, because of which he almost lost his car. My mother's colleague named Perry was jealous of her, and very much, because he liked her for more than a year, and my mother constantly shaved him off. Perry was outraged that he was in the friend zone for the second year, and that a guy who sees my mother for the first time got her number that night. My mother explained that it was different, but Perry didn't understand what it was. In short, she and Dad started dating, got married after a while, and then I was born. My father was delighted. He always wanted to have a daughter. Well, then a black streak broke into their quiet, happy life. Remember Perry? Yes, that one. So years later, it turned out that this guy got rich, got connections, and did not forget for a minute how my mother rejected him and preferred my father to him. Perry held a grudge and waited for his moment of revenge. So, this moment had come. This guy managed to put my father in jail thanks to the money he had. Well, he decided to deal with Mother more cruelly. He put her in a mental hospital so that no one would get her. Of course, there was no one to help us because we lived much more modestly than him. Besides, who's going to believe that he did it? How did we find out? Perry came to our house for my birthday 2 years ago. He showed up for a family dinner with a gift. At first, my parents were surprised at him, but he said that he came with good intentions. Like, thanks to them, he is now so rich. He left a gift and left. Inside was an old photo of my mother and him when they were still colleagues. Perry painted my mother's face. It looked creepy, but we didn't betray it. And then it all happened in just 6 months. Dad was arrested on his way to work. Drugs were planted on him, and an uninvited ambulance came to pick up Mom. Allegedly, my mother had an attack of inadequacy. I must say right away, at this moment, we were having lunch in the kitchen. What could be wrong with it? I knew it was him right away. I immediately found his address and went to his house and threatened him with violence. That goat just laughed and said that my mom didn't need to be turned off years ago. My aunt, my mother's sister, temporarily took over my guardianship. She came to live in our house, so I was calmer. I tried to live my old life, but it didn't work out because I knew it wasn't fair. I was the only one who trusted my parents, and they trusted me. Even relatives thought that Dad was really addicted to drugs, and my mother went crazy against this background. So I started to come up with an escape plan. I had to get my mother out first, because she could then hire a lawyer to defend my father. I couldn't do it alone, and no one was going to help. I had several unsuccessful attempts to break into the mental hospital, and once I succeeded. Almost at the entrance, I took a robe from one of the patients and ran into the territory. I found my mother's room and rushed in there. My mother was just in shock, but she was so happy to see me, and then she chased me away. But I said I wanted to help her escape from there and left her hairpins. Oh yes, you don't know. A hairpin in my mother's hands is like a universal key to all doors. She had one shot at this. She told me about the passions that took place in the walls of the mental hospital every day. Not only do they have almost no concept of day and night, since among all the patients she was the only one who was adequate, but there were also evil nurses walking around. They also carry batons. Break the silence? Beat, break something. Beat, say a word when you don't need to. Beat, eat more than you should. Beat. They were beaten for any joint, even a minor one. And even in the psych ward, local patients often yelled for no reason. Sometimes you walk past them and they could sharply attack you or bite your head. My mother had to defend herself there more than once. But the staff are a different story. The nurses did not stand on ceremony there. They took all the parcels from the relatives without shame or conscience, especially money and food. And they also put them in the punishment cell for bad behavior. A dark little room without windows and doors. It was a punishment room. My mom was really going crazy in there. We quickly discussed the day when she would run away, and I was waiting for her with a friend in the car on the next street. My mother was gone for a long time, and I was beginning to worry. It turns out that when everyone went to bed, my mother opened the door and began to leave unhindered. She knew the corridors where there were no security cameras and moved very carefully. When she reached the last door, she was noticed and had to run down the stairs, covering her face so that she would not be recognized. On the way, she wrapped the clothes she found around her head and started running as fast as she could. But there was another surprise ahead. Security. They saw her from afar and prepared for the shockers. At this time, my friend, whose name is Tyler, by the way, took a convenient position in advance, shooting at the guards with darts with sleeping pills, and they passed out on the move. Yes, we made them ourselves. It's a good thing we made it before they took aim at Mom. I watched through the binoculars as she ran to the gate, her eyes burning and my heart pounding with fear. A little more, and I was ready to faint from excitement and try to breathe as deeply as possible. And now, there was only one barrier left, to jump over the gate. We managed to throw bricks in there in advance so that my mother could climb on them, because she was not tall. And then, as she was about to climb over and hold out her hand to me, someone jerked her back. Mom almost fell over. "Dogs!" my mother screamed. Oh no, I thought. I didn't know about them at all. I was so confused that I didn't know what to do. One of them clung to my mother's pant leg and wouldn't let go. My mother kicked her in the nose, but the dog didn't care. So I yelled at my mother to take off her pants. She quickly released the button with one hand, and the pants fell to the ground with the dog. At that moment, I pulled my mother towards me, and she fell right on top of me, knocking me to the ground. We didn't have much time left, so we had to get out of there before all the staff woke up and the guards woke up. We held hands and ran towards Tyler's car. Finally, when Tyler saw familiar silhouettes nearby, he started the car. Mom jumped into it with the speed of an animal, and we took off. We had some time to do some things and hide. We arrived at a specially equipped bunker for me and my loyal friend. It was so low that even the dogs couldn't smell my mother's scent. In short, that's where we stopped. The three of us barely slept the night we escaped. Everyone was discussing how cool everything was thought out and done. There was so much adrenaline in our bodies that I thought I would never sleep again in my life. But I was so glad that my mother managed to escape, because a healthy person should not be in such a place. So, first she rested, recovered a little, and after a couple of days, we began to come up with a plan to save my father. By the way, when I saw my mother in a medical uniform running away from the staff with batons, I thought that a little more and they would catch up with her. What would have happened then? She would have been punished 2 or 3 times as much? But a year ago, we went on vacation abroad and had no idea that such grief could happen in our family only because of the jealousy and complexes of my mother's former admirer. At that time, all the channels were full of news and a picture of my mother saying that she escaped from a mental hospital and is dangerous. Although this is obviously not true. The police are calling on citizens to hand her over as quickly as possible. but I hid her too securely. I believed that everything that was written about my ancestors was untrue. Perry managed to buy many people's sense, but not our common sense. So while my mom is getting stronger, I'm working out a plan with a friend to free my dad. Do you want to know how we can free him? Then follow this channel. Subscribe and watch new videos first. Well, I'll be back soon.